So, one of the key things that we've been able to do in terms of the solution and ensuring that that compliance is there and it's consistent is we have retail approved carriers, which is very, very key.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's segment right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. I am your show host, Megan Young Gamble, and also Chief Project Officer at GLC, your packaging and project execution team for CPG brands. And if you've been rocking with us for a while, welcome back to the house. If this is your first time getting engaged with us, welcome to the house. So, here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse, we interview powerhouses in various business sectors to really talk about how to help it create, develop, and advance getting products to market. So for today's featured powerhouse guest, he is the logistics guru. Okay, he has some extensive experience around logistics, what you need to consider as part of your shipping strategy, also understanding how to think about it for sustainability and the global growth, and leveraging technology as part of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege of having the VP of Sales and Marketing of eShipper, Mr. Imtiaz Kermali. He has been with eShipper for quite some time, and he leads growth and strategic partnerships across North America. Alongside of being a eShipper vice president, so he has a lot of hats he wears. He's also a business owner. So he is the co-founder of eShipper Plus, Smart Freight, and also AMZ Prep, where he helps scale logistics solutions for e-commerce brands globally. Mr. Kamali has over 17 years of experience, so that's why I'm calling him the logistics guru, because he is merging his extensive experience working in logistics as well as the entrepreneur background into making sure he's providing the right effective solutions as part of your shipping strategy. Because now with tariffs in place, we're thinking about cross-border strategies, we're thinking about how to get goods to and from, how it does not impact our bottom line. He is the person to hear from. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mr. MTS Kamali. So, welcome to the house.
Thank you, Megan. So happy to be here today and really, really looking forward to our chat.
Absolutely. Likewise. So, I gave a brief introduction about yourself, but nobody can speak about you like you can. So, I would love for you to share with our viewers and listeners a little bit more about you, like how you got into the space, a little bit about your journey, and what led you into the infamous world of logistics.
Absolutely. So I was born in East Africa in Kenya. And one of my claims to fame is I've lived in four different continents. I've worked in multiple levels of sales, marketing, and just in terms of operational flow. But I studied engineering at school. So I did a master's in chemical engineering. And it shocks a lot of people that I ended up doing an engineering degree and kind of went into corporate sales. But I've always been a people's person. I really love interacting with people. And from a young age, I've always had a knack of liking to solve problems. So engineering was a very natural fit for me in terms of getting in front of multiple different issues, areas of concern, problems, and really working around problem solving and finding different ways to come up with the right type of solution. Being in logistics, you have to be a problem solver. You have to be somebody who's very, very patient and somebody who can see something through from start to the end, which has also led me into the type of different roles and hats that I've wore over the last decade being in Canada in logistics. It's really allowed me to propel all of the different learnings I've had during my school days, as well as my interactions, to come up with some really, really innovative solutions in the market. And of course, I am surrounded by some brilliant minds and an amazing team that has helped me to excel in everything that I really enjoy doing. And logistics doesn't stop, right? So, in the
Yeah.
last 12 months of this year, or even the last 6 months of 2025, how much disruption we've seen, how much changes we've seen, and how many new types of things we've had to learn, from tariffs dealing with different, postal strikes or disruptions and so on and so forth. So it's a really great dynamic place to be, where no one day is the same. And leading a group of people has just allowed me to challenge myself in multiple facets of understanding problems, creating solutions, and then seeing them through 250 odd people in the organization and making sure that unified message sips across every single division. So it's been a great journey.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's amazing how you take your background in engineering, because as a chemical engineer, it's all about processes, how to create different things, of course, the reactions, etc. But that definitely crosses over into the world of logistics as well, because as you mentioned, problem solving is the key consideration and characteristics of logistics. And a lot of companies, especially brands, startup brands that I speak with and work with, they always think about logistics at the end, when I tell
Right.
them it should really be considered at the beginning of your strategy, and when you're starting to think about what does that look like for your product. So with your experience and with you working and living across four continents, that's so amazing. That's a great fun fact. What recommendations would you give to startup brands of how they should really be intentional about what their logistics model should look like, and considering it at the beginning of development and their strategy before they go to market?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key things about any business or any brand that wants to get started is around thinking about the customer journey and thinking about how you can really place yourself outside of having to run the operations on a day-to-day basis. So thinking about what the customer actually wants and what you want the customer to feel your brand to have, and then working backwards from there and ensuring that you fit the puzzles together. So I think there's a lot of things from a logistics perspective that businesses want to do or try and overdo. And what ends up happening is they get stuck and entangled inside the detail. So a
Mhm.
big part of the advice that I give to new businesses, new startups, as well as businesses that have been around for a few years, is always think about, what does your customer perception look like? What do you want that customer perception to be like? And then work backwards from there and really think through all the different ways that you can take yourself out and build a process that can be replicated. Because as you grow and your business grows, one of the key things we tell our business owners is, you focus on what your core competency is, which is what you
Mhm.
enjoy doing, things like sales, marketing, product development. Logistics is a very, very key part in ensuring profitability of your business and the sustainability and scalability of what you're trying to do. But always take a step back and think about how you can build processes that can replicate and scale without you, so you can actually focus on what you do best, as opposed to having to really dive into every single problem and try and solve it.
Oh, that's so good, because, to your point, when the brands I work with, I'm like, who is the customer? What's the journey? If I was your target customer or target market, what would that look like, for me being the end consumer? And like you said, a lot of brands try to do everything,
Yeah,
and logistics falls short by the wayside. But, with you all being intentional partners with the brands, they can focus on the product development, the marketing aspect, the customer journey, really building that out and understand their,
correct. Exactly.
because they
Yep.
want to go into, of course, you're in business to make money, but of course, as a product owner, you want to expand the brand and also consider retail, which we're going to get into here shortly too. So, as you mentioned, like, you help work alongside and you partner. That's the best word to use, with the brands. I know with eShipper, you really have a shipping platform that really helps consolidate all those pain points that brands experience,
Yeah.
regardless of scale, into one platform. So I would love for you to share a little bit about what eShipper is and how it can really be the one-stop destination for shipping solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the first thing to start with is, what is our mission, right?
Hmm.
As a business. And I think the mission for eShipper is to democratize shipping across the board. And what I mean by that is, our whole thought process getting into logistics was building a technology that enabled a level playing field where small businesses and medium-sized businesses could truly compete with large businesses. And, at the epitome of that, what we really wanted to do was to be able to create a thought process for businesses that they could jump onto, empower themselves with all the tools that they needed from a logistics perspective. And again, going back to my old point, is focus on what your core competence is, knowing that your partner has you covered. So, at the core of what we do at eShipper is we're an online platform that brings together all the major carriers in one place, allowing you to, at a switch of a button or a click of a mouse, compare rates between 10 to 12 different carriers, different solution levels and service levels, and be able to create a program that you can jump onto without having to navigate carrier discussions, negotiations, manage claims, customer service, and so on and so forth. We do
Mm-hmm.
that on your behalf. And I think what we bring to the table, we're very much a simplified Expedia for shipping, if that's what you want to call it. When you go on holiday, you simply want to tune into the destination, the type of hotel you want, and then you want to be able to see what are your available options, and you want to have the choice. You want to be empowered to pick what you like best. And that's what we
Mm-hmm.
do at eShipper. We empower brands to create the ability to have the best, highly discounted shipping rates in the market and a solution that's all encompassing so that they can focus on what they do best without having to lift up a finger and negotiate rates or think about what volume is going to which carrier. We're fully carrier agnostic. It's completely free to use, and you could actually sign up and start using us within 2 minutes. So that's how instant
Wow.
our platform allows you to start working with us.
And it seems like the eShipper platform is very intuitive, so that way it can look at various carriers and couriers to see what's the right courier for you, what's the best price for you, and having brands go back to focus on what they do best instead of trying to negotiate rates and carrier rates and what does that look like and coordination of all those things because that is a heavy lift. And brands, starting off, brands definitely try to do it, but the fact that eShipper is available and built for all scales of businesses, even startup brands, is advantageous. So, listeners, if you know a startup brand, if you are a startup brand or
Yes,
scaling your brand, please get in contact with eShipper. All of Imtiaz's information will be down in the show notes as well. And if you're also checking us out on our respective platforms, you can click the links to learn more about eShipper, book a demo, and like you said, you can get signed up in as little as 2 minutes, with an account. And MTS and his team can walk you through the platform more extensively as well.
absolutely. Megan, I'll tell a quick story if you don't mind, just to bring
Of
things
course.
really well together. So we worked with an aspiring influencer, and she had four different SKUs. She was selling scarves. She had four different colors. She was 8 months pregnant. She was
Mm.
getting about 100 orders a day, and she was having to take these packages from her apartment to Canada Post on a daily basis just so that they could get shipped out to their customers.
Oh,
She
wow.
came to eShipper 8 months pregnant and said, I've had enough of this. I love growth, but this is taking a toll on me, and I'm, about to give birth. I don't think I'll be able to manage all of this movements as much as I'd like to over the next month or two. So we set her up with an account manager. We set her up with an eShipper account. And what advantage she had there straight off the bat was that our carriers would pick up from her apartment as opposed to her having to leave her house. In 10 months of being a new mother, she was able to expand her SKUs from four to 100 different colors. She was
Wow.
able to grow by 100% in that time. And she was able to do that being a new mother and caring for a little child. So you yourself have a newborn in your life, and you know how
Mhm.
hectic that can be. But I want to go back to the core of what we spoke about in the first minute of this discussion, which is she was able to get away from the logistics and have her account manager worry about all of that stuff, ensuring that the pricing made sense so her profitability stayed where it needed to. And she went back to focusing on her core competence, which was product development and marketing her business. And she was able to create 96 new colors and schemes for her
Wow.
product set, allowing her to expand her product set as well as get new sales in and enhance her customer journey.
Man, that's amazing. And shout out to this business owner because being a mom, first doing anything while you're pregnant as
Absolutely.
a first time mom is truly commendable, and yet the brain matter is like what am I doing? What am I focusing on? So the fact that she was building out a company with 4 SKUs to start, 8 months pregnant, to then scaling it to add on additional 90 plus units to have a total of 100 SKUs, I think you mentioned,
Mhm.
is phenomenal. And that really shows the power of having strategic partners, in place to allow her to focus on the product development, to also be able to take care of her newborn, because I'm taking care of my baby girl too, simultaneously to this episode. And it's just truly amazing. And having strategic partners in place is truly commendable. And even with this story you shared, I'm sure she expanded the market outreach as well,
Certainly.
as part of adding on and having 100 SKUs. So my question to you, MTS, is with eShipper, you helped her start off with the 4 SKUs and you scaled her to 100 SKUs. And I'm sure she expanded her market territories as well. How does eShipper partner with the brands that are looking to expand into other regions? So if Canadian-based businesses looking to go into North America brands looking to go into Mexico, what does that look like, and how does eShipper partner with the brands as they're scaling and growing?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, first and foremost, over the last decade, we've grown our carrier network to over 22 small package carriers. Now, that includes your large national carriers such as your FedEx, your UPS, your Canada Post. It also includes regional carriers that are great for certain parts of the country. And some of these regional guys are now able to scale across the entire country, maybe up to 94% of the population. And that's just Canada. Within Canada, I think sometimes to answer your question in a really elaborate way, is to say that Canada is a huge country in itself. From a land mass perspective, it's
Mhm.
humongous. It's one of the largest in the world. But the density and population of Canada is about 35 to 40 million, meaning that you don't have that much density in terms of deliveries across the country. And so when we talk to a Canadian brand, their first biggest mission is, how do I cover Canada in a way that I can still host and hold my profit margins? The second market that they really want to grow into is the US market, which is 10 times larger than the Canadian market. And similarly, when we speak to US businesses, they first start by dominating their US market, and then the first new market they enter tends to be Canada because we're neighbors. So having a cross-border solution is really, really key. And we work with the top carriers that enable shipping within your domestic country as well as cross-border in a
Mhm.
way that is completely seamless. So as an example, in Canada, and I'm sure we'll build on this in the next segment, but we have a program called Air Zone Skipping, which enables us to partner up with Air Canada, utilizing passenger flights to ship product across Canada without actually paying an express rate. So in the
Mhm.
market, you could pay for a ground shipment, you could pay for an express shipment. So anything that's going, let's say, Toronto, Vancouver, or New York, California, could take anywhere from 4 to 8 days, depending on which carrier you're using. And then if you want something faster, let's say a 1 day transit or a 2 day transit time, you're probably going to end up paying 4 to 5 times more to get the faster delivery. What we have done in the market, and this is across Canada and the US, is we've partnered up with Air Canada and other airlines to be able to provide a 2 to 3 day solution across the country at a price that's actually the same or cheaper than a ground solution.
Wow.
So this is groundbreaking in the sense of the fact being that we're able to offer these solutions to a multitude of our customers where they're able to provide an enhanced value and a faster transit time. But what's actually even more key is the fact that not every business can have a one size fits all solution.
Mhm.
So some businesses want to ship out to retail, some businesses have multiple SKUs, some are heavier, some are lighter. And
Yeah.
then you've obviously got products within your product set that have batteries, alcohol, dry ice, things like that that are not permitted or restricted in quantity when it comes to passenger flights. So where eShipper comes in is we create a multitude of solutions, allowing you to use one platform to utilize whichever solution you need at the right time. And we've
Mhm.
taken that one step forward by creating automation and rules within our e-commerce hub that allows you to say, for these 10 SKUs, only use this type of service. And then for these two, which are restricted, only use a ground service. And the idea here is to try and take away the thinking from the entrepreneur who has another 10 different hats that they're wearing, that they have to
Mhm.
get to multiple places. And, order generation should not be a bottleneck in your growth. Shipping globally, we have a multitude of partners from Courier Express to e-commerce, from, things like a DDU, which is duties delivery unpaid. So your consumer at the doorstep pays duties and taxes within that country, or duties paid. So we offer a multitude of carriers on our platform, and we tailor our solution and our rates based on your needs and based on what your focal point is, whether it's speed, whether it's service, whether it's cost.
I love that. And I love how you broke it down, to show like two tracks for brands that are starting off and scaling and want to have the cross border strategy. So from Canada, US, or vice versa, to even going global, and having the different partners in place through eShipper, to really have more effective rates, more efficient rates, that's advantageous for brands because with everything increasing, everybody's looking at dollar bills,
Right.
looking at how it impacts the bottom line. And there's one thing that you mentioned that I really want to hit on because it seems like you mentioned this earlier. eShipper is like the Expedia for shipping. But the fact that you're able, with air zone skipping, you're able to assess what's the best carrier across Canada, US, and having to and being known as the prime delivery of 2 to 3 day window is advantageous because all of us are shopping on Amazon. A lot of us are Amazon
Exactly.
Prime members. I don't know anybody that's not a Prime member, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the fact that you all are having that same approach with shipping goods for e-commerce brands is golden because now with everything increasing, we want to be able to get our products quicker. We want to be able to enjoy them, to experience them in a much quicker time frame. So I really love that.
Just to touch on that particular point you made about and the expectation that people want their deliveries really, really quick. So as a
Mhm,
consumer on your website, a couple of things I'm looking at is, once I've bought and I've got to check out, is shipping going to cost me? How long is it going to take? Will it
mhm,
arrive on time? Etc. Etc. I think where we've done really, really well as an organization is the ability to give our customers, so these are merchants selling product, choice. Okay. Because when Megan goes into my website where I sell t-shirts and she wants to buy a t-shirt for Father's Day, or she may want to buy a t-shirt for herself, she can
mhm,
choose between having it delivered to her fast or having it delivered to her slow and not having to pay for shipping. And so
mhm,
merchants like myself who are selling that t-shirt can now have the ability to say, hey, you can have free shipping because it's going to come in 3 to 6 days, or you can have it within a day or two, and this is what the cost is going to be. And now, as a,
mhm.
s- as a buyer online, you love choice. You want to make the
Absolutely.
choice that makes sense for you. Today, you might want it really, really quick because it's a birthday party, but
Mhm.
next week you are okay with slow and you don't mind having it delivered in 6 to 7 days as long as you don't have to pay a penny more. So I think
Exactly.
that's what technology has really enabled us to do, is create the choice for the customer to be able to choose what they feel is best for them on the day.
I love that. And we love choices, especially in an instant gratification time period.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if I want it tomorrow versus if I can wait a week, I love that eShipper allows, gives people options and choices as an e-commerce brand. And I want to ask you a quick question around the automation and rules because you mentioned that,
Yeah.
based upon select SKUs, you can determine the automation and rules. So I love the logic behind it. So say, for example, I'm gonna go back to the brand that had the scarves.
Hmm.
So four scarves scaled to 100, and let's say there's based upon the top color. I'm just gonna say green for money, right? So the top color of the scarves is in the green category, and we want to have those scarves be shipped out quicker than some of our other slower moving colors, like we'll say yellow,
Yeah.
right? So if I have the green category of scarves and I set up the automation and rules, is eShipper going to help me give me first analytics behind the scenes to show what is shipping well, what's not, the time frame, delivery, point of delivery, proof of delivery like Amazon Prime, or how does that automation get incorporated for me as an end user, but also for me as a brand to see what's working well across my different SKUs?
Yeah, so I think they're two separate things. So the first, as a seller who is
Mm-hmm.
the actual eShipper customer, when I upload my SKUs onto eShipper and into my Shopify app per se, I can now start to build rules that say for all green scarves, I want you, when a customer selects this particular SKU number, please use this service. So, as a seller who is the eShipper customer, you can go onto your profile and within your portal and start to create these rules that will enable at checkout and in
Okay.
terms of speed journey, the system to pick the SKU and the right solution. Now, what that does is let's say that today is Tuesday, and this evening I have a sale and I have 500 orders that I sell overnight. Okay. What's going to
Hmm.
happen when I come in tomorrow is, as a normal platform, I would probably need to pick and choose per SKU or per order and say, this is how I want it to be shipped. When you
Hmm.
create automation and you come in the morning, it says to you, 500 orders have already created labels and tracking numbers for you to
Hmm.
audit. Are you happy with all green going this way and all yellow going this way? And you just say submit or approve, and your labels start
Hmm.
printing and your tracking numbers go back to all your consumers. Now, when we talk about analytics, that's a really great question. So the eShipper platform has its own dashboard that provides super end-to-end analytics. It will tell you how fast your SKUs are delivered, where in the country or in the world most of your orders are going to, your top
Hmm.
10 destinations as an example, your top 10 SKUs, how much you're spending in certain areas, and so on and so forth. And then the team behind our support division can actually break that down into much more granular information. What that means is after a week or after 2 weeks, we can actually run a report for you to say, hey, by the way, for green scarves, you chose the fastest solution and you got 99% SLA. So your
Hmm.
99% of your orders were delivered within that 2 to 3 day time frame or the 4 to 5 day time frame. Whatever you ended up picking, we can now go in and do the analytics post sales so you can make
Hmm.
better decisions in your next sale. And
Okay.
so that's how our system would work.
Oh, I love that. And everything we now look at, especially as business owners, it always comes down to the data. What are the metrics? What are the things that we're tracking to? How can we be
Absolutely.
more efficient and improve the processes? You know this as a prior chemical engineer, and also as a business owner and vice president
Yes.
as well. So metrics are everything. So since we talked about, a little bit about cross-border strategy, we talked a little bit about expanding and how each shipper helps grow with the brands. Now, as part of that growth, brands are considering going into retail or B2B markets.
Yep.
And they're like, well, I don't know how to handle this increased volume, from the purchase orders of the retailers. I don't know what that looks like for getting to those retailers' distribution centers. How does that work? How can I prevent chargebacks, etc.? So, share with us a little bit about how eShipper can continuously scale with the brands that are looking to go into retail or B2B markets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, retail is probably one of the best markets to be in because your brand is in front of people, right? And you get to
Hmm.
literally touch and feel something before you buy it as opposed to it being online. So, first and foremost, retail logistics is fundamentally different to B2C and B2B. And what
Hmm.
we mean by that is getting into retail shelves is not just about the product. It's about compliance, it's about
Yep.
placement, and it's about making sure that you've got the right retailer for your product. When we
Hmm.
talk about compliance, we'll talk a lot about logistics and the importance of making sure your retail compliance is really, really key and makes sense because there are fines to pay, there are relationships that can be lost very easily on very, very thin margins. So, when we're talking to growing brands about retail expansion, there's often this misconception about securing shelf space being the hardest part, right? And the truth is, actually, getting into retail is just the beginning.
Yep.
Staying there requires logistical excellence, and really, a lot of companies that we've spoken to underestimate that.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot are starting to get much more serious about it because, you know, online space, social media, and like you mentioned earlier, startup communities and growth incubators really educate businesses on all of these different facets and how to be in control. But some of the challenges that we find when it comes to delivering into retail is that major retailers require 98 plus percent on time delivery. So that's your first big key is
Mhm.
making sure that whoever you're partnering with is reliable enough to get it into that particular location on the day at the right time based on the appointment that they were given. The next big thing is for you to be EDI compliant because most retailers order through EDI, and that's a technology term which basically enables retailers to send orders in a much faster way in their format, which a business would need to be able to absorb and figure out. And then the final compliance side of it is labeling and making sure that your product is retail ready labeled, meaning that when it enters into the Walmarts or the Costco's, there's very little work for them to do. If they require some work to be done, it's a chargeable fee and it's not cheap. And it could delay things. It could also really play around with, the ability for you to grow and scale with that particular retailer. We have a
Mm-hmm.
pet customer that ships to 146 retail outlets, including Walmart, Costco, in Canada and in the US. One of their deliveries was 17 minutes delayed. Okay.
Wow.
They had to pay a fine of $17,000. So ensuring that you have the right partner is really, really key. And this client came to us about 6 months ago after they were paying multiple fines on a month-to-month basis, and they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to find a way to stop it. So one of the key things that we've been able to do in terms of the solution and ensuring that that compliance is there and it's consistent is we have retail approved carriers, which is very, very key. So at certain retailers, there are certain trucking companies that have approval to literally skip the queue and go to their own dock. They have a
Mm-hmm.
dedicated area where only that particular company's trucks go, and they can bypass appointments, they can get faster appointments, and so on and so forth. Now,
Mm-hmm.
not every carrier is equipped to handle retail's requirements. So, first and foremost, we need to vet our carriers to understand if they actually meet the requirements to deliver to that particular retailer from a
Mm-hmm.
compliance perspective as well as the retailer's expectations. Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, different requirements depend on the retailer that you're delivering to. And
Mm-hmm.
within that same retailer, they will have different compliance for Canada and different compliance for the US. So when you're crossing the border and having to deliver somewhere, it's really, really key that you have multiple ways of getting that delivery done. Of course, EDI and labeling expertise is really, really important for a brand to make sure that they're compliant from a packaging perspective. And then finally, I think when it comes to retail, one of the key things that any great brand will do is proactive risk management. To think
Mm-hmm.
about, what happens if this doesn't go to plan or plan B doesn't work, what is plan C, and so on and so forth. So retail deliveries are difficult, but there's a lot of ways to mitigate the risks and ensure that you have a system that will help you scale.
Oh, wait. Now that's a whole masterclass that MTS just mentioned because expanding into retail, getting on the shelf is the easy part, right? When you do go to open calls, etc. However, the logistics part is usually the biggest bottleneck that we see with brands and getting a lot of chargebacks or the fines, like MTS talked about with one of their current customers that came to them and is now using eShipper to help prevent some of those risks and costly fines, so it's definitely important to have retail approved carriers and have a strategic partner that understands the retailer requirements because Walmart is different than Target, different than Ulta, Kohl's, Sephora, and US is different than Canadian markets. So you need to have a partner that understands the requirements across cross-border strategies, especially if you're expanding and also understanding the different retailer requirements too, because as part of that, the EDI compliance part is huge. And I see a lot of startup brands have that missed opportunity because they're not using the right partner. And so if you're a startup brand, please make sure you follow the points that MTS mentioned, which is, you want to have a partner that helps ensure that you're hitting the 98% plus on time delivery. Because if you miss that appointment, you heard what their client was paying previously, $17,000 for being 17 minutes late. That's huge. Secondly, you want to make sure that you have a partner that's EDI compliant. Retailers will not accept you if you're not EDI compliant. That's a huge, costly investment for you as a brand. And retail ready labeling. Guys, in my business, GLC, we talk about compliance is huge, and we want to make sure that everything for packaging is retail ready. So a lot of brands are like, well, why do I have to do this? Well, it's to help mitigate any risk, help mitigate any chargebacks. And this is what the requirements are for retails. So MTS are saying a lot of the same things that I mentioned to my brands and what I've mentioned on
Amazing.
prior segments here on the product and packaging powerhouse as well. Because at the end of the day, we are here to make sure that you all are set up for success. We're not here just to give fluff. We do this for, for our living, to pay for our household and families and things like that too. However, we're telling you because we want to see you all be successful and we want to see you all succeeding. We want to see your brands grow from through 3 stores to 50 stores to 100 stores to go in Canada, US, Mexico, EU, Asia. We want to see you all succeed. So we are sharing this because we're sharing from our own lessons learned, what we see, and help make sure that you all are strategically positioned to be set up for success. So, MTS, you mentioned about having those retail approved carriers. And I know with eShipper, you all within your platform, you have some 40 boxing algorithms that can be
Yes.
incorporated to help reduce shipping costs. I would love for you to share a little bit about what that looks like and how brands can incorporate that, into their strategy and also how it's leveraged within the platform.
100%. So obviously, you're in the packaging space, so you know exactly how important packaging is.
Yes.
I think the first thing we always talk about is packaging is an extension of your brand, just like shipping is. That
Yep.
unboxing experience is so key to the perception of how the product is taken in. And I think, Apple, for example, has done a fantastic job of creating that enhanced appeal when you open
Yeah.
up an Apple iPhone or a laptop, and it just feels so nice. You just feel so empowered by the unboxing experience. But a lot of brands that we've seen over the years have utilized the wrong box for the wrong type of product. And there's so many different impacts that can have. So I'm going to go through one by one some of the things that the boxing algorithm does, the logic behind it, and then how it really strengthens the business and helps you to scale. But how many examples, I don't know how many you have had, but I've had so many examples of Amazon delivering me a small box of supplements in a huge box, right? And you're
Yes.
like, oh my god, such a waste of space, and you have to
Space.
get rid of this
Yes.
huge box too, right? So that's what we wanted to really take away from some of the clients that we work with. And the 4D algorithm, or the 4D boxing algorithm, is basically a proprietary technology that we developed at eShipper in order for a seller to select the right shipping box based on how many different items they were selling at checkout. So,
Mm.
in simplicity, you go to a box company and you normally tend to buy different sizes of boxes depending on what your product is.
Yep.
So you can assume that if a customer comes to my website and only buys one item, I don't even need to maybe put it in a box. I could put it in a poly mailer if it's clothing.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
if they're going to buy footwear and they're going to buy a t-shirt and a jacket, how am I going to package that? Am I going to make multiple pieces, or am I going to try and stick them all into one box? And if they, for example, want to place an even bigger order, do I have the right packaging in play, or do I use
Hmm.
multiple packages? So the
Hmm.
idea or the problem was that the sellers that were utilizing online selling and websites were guessing box sizes. And the impact this can have is oversized packaging. So, number one, wasted space because you're paying for air as opposed to actually paying to move your product. You pay a higher shipping cost because most carriers charge based on dimensional weight,
Mention.
not just
Hmm.
actual weight. So, larger boxes cost more money even if they're light, right? Even if the actual weight is light, but they take up more space in a truck, the truck is going to charge you more money because you're taking up the space.
Hmm.
It also creates a bit of a poor customer experience. When you're unboxing and it just feels like what a waste, or it doesn't make sense why somebody would have shipped in such a big box when it's such a small item. And
Hmm.
then, I think something that we're hearing more and more is sustainability. So, of course, with more product being used, it's got a higher environmental footprint, which means actually it's not good for the environment. And with all that said and done, what we really wanted to do was to create something that was seamless, that would work online intuitively as your process was happening. So, let's take an
Hmm.
example, Megan. You come to my website and you buy 3 products, okay? We're not going to stop you as a buyer on our website and say, hey, you know what? We need to understand this before we give you a box size and then we can give you shipping costs. we incorporated our algorithm directly into your sales channel. So as
Mm,
the buyer is adding more into their checkout, our system is quickly determining which box size makes the most sense based on the SKUs that have been selected. And so, right at checkout, we're able to provide accurate rates for businesses, even showing live rates at checkout. So, if you were coming onto my
mm,
website, and let's say that you live in Philadelphia and I'm based out of Atlanta and I needed to ship something to you, at a live checkout, we would be able to give you accurate rates based on the box chosen for the amount of product that you bought at checkout.
wow.
And so basically, what that ends up doing is it reduces your dimensional weight because you're now using the right packaging and you're trying to create as much of a snug effect for those products inside of your box. It
Mhm.
also reduces movement of the product within the packaging. So, we have less customers complaining that the product was broken when we received it or was shaking violently through transit. It streamlines operations, so it removes guesswork for the packer and it reduces labor time and excess packing material that's used. And then, of course, as we mentioned earlier, sustainability. Your smaller boxes mean fewer delivery trucks because it's taking less space within a truck, lower fuel consumption, reduced carbon emissions, and of course, the actual packaging that you're using, whether it's cardboard, paper, whatever it may be, there's less of it that you're having to throw out, or your consumer that receives it is having to put into their recycling. So it just allows everything. Now, sustainability does not need to come at a premium. Okay, it often just
Mhm.
starts with small, smart decisions in your supply chain. And the reality is that true sustainability is not just about electric cars or electric trucks. It's about eliminating the waste at the operational level. And I think those are the two things that we really wanted to focus in on. Now, just before I close on the particular question, we had a customer that actually came to us and they had, multiple box sizes and, they were putting small items into big boxes. When they switched to our 4D algorithm, their average shipping cost dropped by 18%. And their
Wow.
customers' reviews started by mentioning how thoughtful and clean the packaging looked. So
Mm.
it gave them a little bit of a boost in their sales and also gave them a better perception for their customers, who, of course, speak to many other customers and prospects in the future. So it really worked out for them just being smarter.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a whole masterclass. And ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, if based upon what MTS is sharing, book a demo. That's pretty much the ultimate goal is for you to book a demo, see how eShipper can help you all think about how to have better logistics and shipping strategies, how to have a strategic partner that's intentional of making sure that you're using right size packaging, on time delivery, because at the end of the day, we all are focused on sustainability. And it's like he said, it's not just about electric cars. Sustainability is across everything from, our bottom line to packaging, to the products, to the experience, to carbon emissions and offsetting, etc. Because eShipper, as part of their sustainability mission, they're carbon neutral and they're really intentional about making sure that they're thinking about carbon offsetting. And to date, with their impact, they actually have they're carbon neutral and offsetting over 1 million kilograms of carbon dioxide. So that's a huge impact, and that's over 33,000 flights to LA. So that shows the impact that eShipper is having and how they're really strategic about logistics and offering the right solutions to you all and having the technology like the 4D boxing algorithm incorporated in the platform. So just go book a demo with MTS and his team. The link will be down in the show notes for you all to get involved with eShipper and leverage their platforms to help you have better shipping solutions for your global growth. And so, MTS, we going to close out with sustainability a little bit because you talked about it, how sustainability is not just about electric cars. It is around the full operations from packaging to the products to transportation and logistics to the unboxing experience to the right size packaging for the customer experience to the circular economy and more. So, from your experience, and also with you being a VP of marketing, what would you recommend brands to consider as part of like their sustainability strategy? That's the first part of the question. And then second part is how can they incorporate their sustainability metrics or impact that's not considered greenwashing? So it's two parts of the question.
Yeah, great question. So, first and foremost, I think there are good partners out there that actually enable you to take the guesswork away. Like, you don't need to go do all the research and try and create your own process on your website. Shipping is a high, I would say it has a lot of moving parts, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's planes, trucks, warehouses, and there is a lot of carbon offset. And there's a lot of businesses like eShipper that really have taken the thought process of being a logistics company. How
Mm-hmm.
can we be carbon neutral? So I would focus in on, yes, education is really, really important, but find partners that have done the thinking. Of course, do your research to make sure that they are compliant and the things that they say are actually making sense. But for us, what was really key is we wanted our brands to be able to take advantage of some of the work we do in sustainability, which was to offset our greenhouse gases by working with the partners that are planting trees across the world. And I believe for about 4 cents, we're able to provide you with the ability to use a toggle on our platform
Mm-hmm.
and basically offset the amount of carbon for that particular shipment. Now, what we
Mm-hmm.
do know is that consumers who are buying your products are often actively choosing to buy from brands that reflect their values. And
Mm-hmm.
73% of Gen Zs, the young guys, will actually pay more for sustainable brands. Consumers will pay 9.5, 10% premium for eco goods. And this is from research done in 2024. Most businesses think when they hear carbon neutral, it's expensive, it's complicated, and probably not worth the hassle. But I think where we've come in is we've said, look, you don't really need to do much. We'll do all of the running around for you, but you could be sustainable just in the way you ship and getting
Mm-hmm.
your product out. So I think for us, we've designed something that's very simple for businesses to use. You can toggle per shipment if you like,
Right.
and every single carrier that you use is compliant on eShipper's platform. Now, the key differentiator to our solution is that it's carrier agnostic, meaning that it doesn't matter who you're actually using for final mile shipping. As
Mm-hmm.
long as you use the toggle, we have something built out for each one of those carriers. And when you're talking about offsetting carbon, there is a good way of positioning it. So instead of saying we offset 40 tons of carbon, put it into
Mm-hmm.
context so your audience can actually visualize it. And for example, you could say in 2024, we offset 40 tons of carbon, equivalent to planting 1,800 trees or actually removing 30 cars off the road for a year. And this
Mm-hmm.
is where you just mentioned, X amount of flights going to LA. I think
Yeah.
that's the really key part here is how you position it because a lot of the work is being done for compliance and making sure that you're carbon neutral. It's how you actually make sure that businesses understand the impact that you're making in their terms.
Oh, and ladies and gentlemen, like y'all know, we talk about sustainability here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse from various business sectors. And so, from with my conversation with MTS today, it's really just reiterating what we talk about. Sustainability should be thought about at the beginning, and it should be an incremental approach. I tell my startup brands, if you're trying to do sustainability across everything, you're going to fall flat on your face. And one of my prior podcast guests, Rachel Hassel, she talks about what are the two non-negotiables when it comes around sustainability. And let's start there and incrementally improve. So MTS is saying the same thing. Sustainability around logistics, I think should be considered from the beginning, to be honest, and really understanding what sustainability looks like for your brand and for the end consumer and incrementally add on things once you have more capital, once you've assessed what is working well, what's not working well. So looking at the data and looking at the back end systems, especially with eShipper's platform to see how you're able to really showcase what sustainability looks like, carbon emissions, offsetting, how you're having that positive impact into the environment. So if it's planting trees, if it's showcasing
Absolutely.
the number of flights, having those options because 80% of consumers are looking at purchasing brands that are sustainable, but you have to understand what sustainability means to you and your brand and the end consumer at the end of the day. So that is my little tidbit, and that's just my philosophy around sustainability. But MTS, I'm sure you agree with that philosophy too, based upon the key points that you've mentioned. So as we're starting to round out, final question for you. You ready?
Go for it.
Okay, let's do it. So you have 17 years of extensive experience working in this space as a vice president, also business owner, and also working across 4 continents, which is a great fun fact. What is one myth around global shipping or logistics that you would love to bust right now?
So I think there's a few. I'm gonna be really really quick,
Okay.
but I think one of the key things is that going global is too complex, or going global is only for large businesses. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where a lot of brands and a lot of businesses stop to think about how they can grow their market share, and they get stuck in the day to day, and they're a little bit afraid, if I should say, to really push their boat out and grow their market across the world. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I think too many brands, they approach cross-border expansion by thinking about logistics first and the customer second. And I would say, in my experience of being in this industry for such a long time, is start with the customer and build the infrastructure around. I was reading something just a couple of days ago about start scrappy. Like, you don't really need to go and build all of these solutions and all of these processes before you have your first customer. I think what's
Mm-hmm.
really key is get in the deep end, start really learning what it looks like, who your customers are, and really speaking to them about what makes the impact for their decision making, and then work backwards from there. So
Mm-hmm.
success lies in understanding expectations and building a feedback loop that resonates back to what your customers needs are and what they're looking for. So I think that's really really one of the key things I wanted to talk about is, even when you're going across the world, and you want to build a program that is not just Canadian or North American or US led, it's really about understanding what type of customers you're bringing on board, what their requirements are, what your product actually is, and then building the solution from there. Also, don't try and do it all in house, right? Cross border logistics specifically is too complex and fast moving. The smartest businesses don't build everything, they partner well. And working with a global partner or global logistics partner like eShipper allows you to get easier carrier relationships, regulatory expertise, as well as scalable infrastructure without having to invest millions into it. So I think those are a couple of the very simple points I would say to any business that is growing from a startup to a medium size is really start to understand that customer journey and understand your product set, and then build your processes from there. And don't overcomplicate it, don't try and do it all yourself. The best businesses have really really good partners that enable them to go do what they do best and take away the complexity of everything else.
You heard Mr. Imtiaz Kermali say better himself right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. So I love those key points because, as you mentioned, if you have the right strategic partners, you can do anything. Like if you look at Steve Jobs, he did not build out Apple by himself. He started, but to scale the brand, it took multiple people. Look at Amazon. Jeff Bezos started as a bookstore, but now he offers everything, now including a pharmacy, in my local area here in Atlanta. So it's to your point, you need to have the right strategic partners. And that's really the purpose of this podcast, Product and Packaging Powerhouse, is to bring the powerhouses to the table together and really form those strategic solutions for the brands. And so I love that. And guys, if since you've been listening to this episode, of course, get engaged with MTS himself. His information is down in the show notes. If you're watching us virtually, you'll be able to click the link and also visit his LinkedIn, connect with him, ask questions, book a demo with eShipper to see the platform, see the cool algorithms like the 40 boxing algorithm incorporated, and also how you can incorporate automation and rules to have your labels be printed based upon your top selling SKUs and more. Like that's a time saver. And like he mentioned earlier, speed, cost, and service are the 3 top things a lot of brands are looking at. And it seems like eShipper is helping you hit on all 3 of those points. So make sure to get engaged with eShipper and MTS and his team. All information is down in the show notes. So MTS, I appreciate you for sharing this information with us today, right here on the podcast. And so, as we are rounding out our podcast for today, we always like to do some fun, fast facts about our guests during our featured power round. So, this is 90 seconds of lightning speed, fun, fast facts that we ask about our guests to see how they go under pressure. Because as a brand and business owner, we are always under pressure, right?
That's right.
So, we're going to display 90 seconds on the clock. And we're going to ask Imtiaz about two fun facts. So, one of them you already know, which is he has a master's in chemical engineering. And the second fun fact is he got married on his birthday, so he can never forget his anniversary. Okay, that's a smart man. Okay, so we're going to put 90 seconds on the clock and ask some questions to Imtiaz based upon those two fun facts. So, Imtiaz, you ready?
I'm ready. Go for it.
Let's go. All right. So, since you've been a chemical engineer for your background, what are some characteristics or practices that are relevant in business and entrepreneurship?
That are both engineering and entrepreneurship.
Yep.
So, detail, real
Okay.
focus into detail. We talked about this, but solving problems. And I think the most fundamental to entrepreneurship is be comfortable being uncomfortable. I
That
can't put
part.
it better than that.
That part. Okay. And so, if you could blend your chemical engineering background plus a passion for logistics and technology, what would you create and why?
Good question. So, chemical engineering and logistics. I
Yeah.
would probably create a solution for all of these different supplements that we have to eat. And,
Mm,
globally, there's so many deficiencies that we're learning about now with all the commercialization of food. So, I think, the body is so key, the brain fog, all of these things that everybody tends to now start to see the effects over the years, right?
yeah.
So, I would create something that's really super that could be shipped anywhere in the world without any compliance.
Ooh, okay. Good luck on that. Okay, so with your birthday and anniversary shared on the same day, who is under more pressure for remember the day, you or your wife?
My wife, absolutely. That was the plan all along.
So you putting it back on her. Okay, okay.
Absolutely.
But you're a smart man to have the same day. So I
We
like the thinking.
we actually didn't plan for it. We just couldn't find a better date. Like all the dates were taken, so we went with my birthday. So I'm a lucky guy rather than
Okay.
a forward thinker.
There you go. There you go. I love it. And so we're at time, but I want to round out this power round with this question. Products and packaging require logistics and technology because fill in the blank.
So say that one more time.
Product and packaging requires logistics and technology because fill in the blank.
Product and packaging requires logistics and technology because even the best products can't create value until it's delivered.
Boom! That's the best way to end the segment for today. I love that. So, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, you have heard from powerhouse guest Imtiaz Kermali, VP of Marketing and Sales at eShipper. We talked about the importance of having a cross border strategy, how to incorporate sustainability into your approach, the right strategic partners that should be part of your team, and also how to leverage technology for optimization of your brand. And so, yes, I would love for you to close for today to share how everybody can get in contact with you and eShipper.
Yeah, absolutely. If you head out to our website, we have tons of forms that you can fill out for somebody to contact you. We have a free tool that will allow you to create a shipment and see how much it would cost. And as Megan mentioned earlier, your viewers, listeners are both based in the US and Canada. Our solution is North American based. So whether you are a US seller or a Canadian seller, I'm sure we have something that will really support your business and growth. So head up to our website. You'll see multiple forms that you can fill out for us to contact you, or you could actually simply do a quick quote and we'll give you some rates with no strings attached.
I love it. And MTS and the eShipper team have offered a great incentive as well. So if you do get engaged with them, use the referral link that is down in the show notes and you can earn $25. Like that is free money. Okay. And to have a partner that's the Expedia of shipping and be able to get some of your products just like Amazon Prime in 2 to 3 days. Golden. So, thank you all so much for tuning in to today's podcast. All the links and information that we shared today will be down in the show notes for you all to visit. Please get engaged. Our net worth is based upon our network. So make sure you get engaged with Mr. Imtiaz Kermali himself. So thank y'all so much for listening to today's segment on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. And make sure you do follow, like, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content that we drop on this podcast. So we'll
Absolutely.
talk to you in the next one.
Thank you so much. Take care.